My Yeti cup, oh my word, you guys. You can put ice in this cup and come back 8 hours later and there's ice in this cup with no lid on it. I love it so much. Today I want to talk about the 4 stages of love that Bernard of Clairvaux talked about 1,000 years ago. Ready? Here we go. First stage of love, love of self for the sake of self. This is the natural human condition. We call it the fall of man. It's selfishness. It doesn't look like it's always being selfish, but if you dig beneath the surface, that it only does what it does because of how it affects self. Bernard would say that's just the human condition. Second stage, love of God for the sake of self. Oh, so now here's a regular human person who's gotten some religion. They've begun to pray. They've begun to go to church. They've begun to partner with God. They've begun to bargain with God. However sincere they may think they are, the reality is they are after God's blessings. They do not love Jesus. They want what Jesus can give them, even if that is freedom from porn addiction and a better marriage and rescue from addiction. All of those are noble and good things in terms of the betterment of humanity. But if you really think about it, there's a beautiful parable. You show up in heaven, Satan's there on God's throne, and he says, hey, guess what? We win. Now we've taken over heaven. You have 20 minutes to decide. Are you going to party here in heaven with me and my demons, or are you going to go to hell with your Christ? What do you do? Anyone who has love of God for the sake of self would be like, oh, I'm staying in heaven, thanks. The essence of real faith is not, I want my sins forgiven so I can go to heaven. The essence of real faith is, I'm so blown away and in love with God because of the way he has loved me, that he is my treasure, and I would pay any price to be with him because, man, he's beautiful and satisfying and glorious. Now we flip to this Bernard's third stage. Bernard's third stage is love of God for the sake of God. Interesting. You actually treasure God. You actually trust and believe God. The self is no longer the center. The center has shifted. The weight of gravity of my life has shifted from inside of me, and it is now outside of me on God. Love of God for the sake of God is a miracle. It is not natural. It is not humanly possible. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. You must be born again, born from on high. The very nature of humanity is such that we need a miracle of transforming and transplanting a new nature into the heart of us. We call that conversion. Some people call it new birth. People talk about being born again. This is what's interesting. There are tares among the wheat, right? So not everyone who calls me Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only those who do the will of my Father in heaven. And doing the will of the Father in heaven is more than outwardly mimicking. It's inwardly loving. Love of God for the sake of God is a miracle, and it is the difference between conversion and religion. Then, here's the surprising and wild stage. Stage 4 of the kinds of love really took me by surprise, right? Stage 1, love of self for the sake of self. Stage 2, love of God for the sake of self. Stage 3, conversion, love of God for the sake of God. What do you guys think stage 4 is going to be? Stage 4 is love of self for the sake of God. This is the person who's so given up on being, self is no longer the center. God is the center. The beauty and glory and worth and treasure and value and opinion of God is all that matters. All the weight of influence is pushed over onto God. Now, even my view of me has been transformed to his view of me. His value of me has now become my value of me. Does that blow your mind? It blew my mind. Very surprising. See, self-love in the carnal sense is nothing but selfishness. But self-love in the submitted to the Spirit sense is just health. It's just humility. And it's just seeing what he sees when he looks at you. Do you never notice people are like, why does God love me? That shows you don't see what he sees. Until you get a good look at God, you won't get a good look at you. And until you get a good look at you, you won't look at the people around you and see them for who they really are. Yeah. Anyway.